So I so enjoyed this book, and a lot of what I enjoyed about it was your personal story. You were a kid with dyslexia and ADHD, and you went through the public school system, or it sounds like private school system actually, or a combination of both.
I tried it all. I had a little bit of everything.
And that's pretty common for parents and kids with these issues, huh?
Very, very, very common. In the course of my education, I went through 5 different types of schools, actually.
One of the things you kind of describe, the very moving part of the book, you describe what it was like to be out in the hallway when overhearing a parent-teacher conference. So how about if we start there?
Yeah. So, I'll say, in terms of sharing my story, I actually didn't initially write a lot of my story, and then I realized that I needed to offer to families myself as a mentor. And so, my story began in that hallway. So I was sort of a problem kid, and when your job is to sit in school and sort of sit still and read out loud, and those things you don't do very well, you get in trouble a lot. So I'd be asked to read out loud, and because I couldn't do that, I would sort of, create some kind of distraction. I had taken up magic as a hobby, so I'd like light a fireball in the middle of class, and the next thing you know, I was out in the hallway or on the way to the principal's office, and I felt like I must just not be a smart kid. I must not belong in school. It was a very hard way to go through a lot of my early education.
And the conversation with your mom and the teacher was, a conversation I think that happens a lot, right?
Yeah, so there's a moment in the book, which I think you're thinking about, where I was sitting in the hallway. It was a parent-teacher conference, and I'm just waiting for the meeting to end, and I kind of overhear this conversation where the teacher is just telling my mother, I just wish David would try harder. And I overhear this, and my poor mother, who actually happened to also be a teacher in the school, I think she had no clue what to do. And she kind of wanted to defend me. She knew that I was trying as hard as I could, but she also saw my grades and saw, probably at some level what the teacher was saying was true. And I so distinctly remember she walked out, and she was like a woman in the shell of a woman. And we walked home in silence. Because I think at that moment, neither of us knew what to say. And I was born in 1980, and at this time, there wasn't a lot of awareness around dyslexia, around ADD. And frankly, between third grade and fifth grade, a lot of my schooling was like that story. I would actually try to do well in school, but because I couldn't do things the way that they were asking me to do, I would do poorly. There'd be a parent-teacher conference. The teacher would say, I wish David would try harder. And then we wouldn't know what to say to each other. And the truth is I didn't need to try harder. I needed to try differently. And that's really where the gift of being ultimately given the label of dyslexia and ADHD in the fifth grade, that gave me a window to opportunities, a window to try things differently. And openly, it opened an entire education that I had no clue existed for me. I thought I was just going to drop out of school, frankly.
And you're listening to Wellness Talk Radio. We're talking with author David Flink about his book, Thinking Differently. And we're talking about kids that learn differently and what we need to do to help them and encourage them and really get them to see their gifts. And you mentioned awareness, and there is much more awareness now about learning challenges. But I think for a lot of people, that same experience happens where we're remediating. We're trying to get these kids to learn things that they may not necessarily have strengths in. And David, I want to ask you, because I know you outreach to lots of people about learning challenges. What percentage of the population is struggling with ADHD and dyslexia?
So I surprise a lot of people when I share that it's actually 1 in 5 people in America. So 20% of our population has some form of a learning difference. And I love your framing. I think it's learning abilities, but it's just a different learning ability than, the 4 in 5 people who learn a more traditional way.